Let's move on now to discuss the student absence summary input validation rules and submission errors. This slide contains the STAS-specific submission validation errors. When reviewing your records, you should determine the source records for each of the errors that you encounter. You're able to use the CalPADS error list as a reference guide when resolving STAS and other CalPADS errors. The STAS 303, invalid absence summary information when the exemption is not indicated, triggers when at least one of the STAS fields is not populated and the student record has not indicated exempt. The hourly attendance indicator must be set and the remaining fields must be populated with a numerical value if the exemption indicator is null. The STAS 304, invalid absence summary information when the exemption is indicated, triggers when a student has been indicated as exempt, but other STAS fields have been populated. NPS or home hospital students that are exempt only need to have the exemption indicator set in their STAS records. No other data should be populated. The STAS 305 error triggers when the expected attendance days is less than 1 or exceeds 250. Expected attendance days must fall within the 1 to 250 range. The STAS 307 triggers when the days absent out of school suspension is blank or null and the exemption indicator is N, or the value exceeds the number of days calculated from the expected attendance days and days attended calculations. To resolve this error, you'll need to compare the days absent out of school suspension to the expected attendance days and days attended, modifying these figures to ensure both consistency and accuracy. The STAS 313 is a warning. This warning indicates that a STAS record has been indicated as exempt. This may be accurate reporting, but you should verify that the student has an NPS enrollment in CalPADS or a home and hospital instruction reported in the student course section record. The STAS 318 will trigger if the sum of a student's total days absent, that's the sum of the out of school suspension days, unexcused absence days, excused absence days, and incomplete independent study days, plus the days attended, does not equal the days they were expected to attend. Days absent plus days attended must equal days expected. Let's move on now to discussing and reviewing various reporting scenarios. In this scenario, we have a single student enrolled at multiple schools within a single reporting LEA. You must submit both SENR and STAS records for each school that a student attends, even if they're within the same LEA. If a student attends multiple schools within a single LEA during the academic year, a STAS record is reported for each school. In this scenario, a student is enrolled at two schools within a single LEA, but has a primary enrollment with an enrollment status code of 10 at one school, and a short-term enrollment with an enrollment status code of 30 at the second school. When a student has a concurrent primary and short-term enrollment, a STAS record should be reported for both schools. The primary enrollment modifies the days expected to account for the time that the student was enrolled at the other school. The short-term enrollment reports the STAS for the period of enrollment. In this scenario, a student is enrolled at two schools, but in one with an enrollment status code of 10 primary, and in the second with an enrollment status code of 20 secondary enrollment. We do not report STAS records for students with secondary enrollments. So although there is an SENR record for both schools, we would only report a STAS record for the school with a primary enrollment. STAS records are required for enrollment codes of 10 primary and 30 short-term. This scenario shows a student with two SENR records, but only a single STAS record. This is because the student was exited with an N470 no-show enrollment. This is correct reporting in this case because STAS records are not required or expected for students that only have a no-show enrollment. Student enrollment records that are exited using an N470 exit reason code do not require a STAS record. In this scenario, a student has two enrollment records at the same school of attendance in the same academic year to reflect two distinct periods of enrollment, and there is only a single STAS record reported for both periods of enrollment at the school. LEA should only report one record for a student per school. Although there were two separate periods of enrollment, only a single STAS record is reported because the two periods of primary enrollment occurred at the same school in the same academic year. This scenario shows a student who is in both a traditional school and an independent study. For students that are in both traditional schools and independent study over the course of the year, the STAS record will include absence information for traditional schools and incomplete study days for independent study. You report both traditional and independent study absence information in the same STAS record. The rules for taking attendance locally have not changed with the STAS collection for several years. Hourly attendance can be converted into days for STAS reporting. This conversion enables more appropriate school to school comparison of attendance summary data. For hours present attended, used in the numerator, include the total hours in actual attendance. For hours scheduled to attend, used in the denominator, LEA should use the total hours the student is scheduled to attend. The student in this scenario spent time in home and hospital instruction at one school and received traditional instruction at another school. The absent summary exemption indicator has been set to Y for the home and hospital enrollment with the district, while the traditional enrollment has a complete absent summary record. For this scenario, LEA1 provides the bulk of instruction for the student and has the primary enrollment, while LEA2 provides supplemental home and hospital instruction. LEA1 would report the STAS, and LEA2 would not report a STAS record because the student has a secondary enrollment. It's important that LEA1 populate their student information system with absence codes that do not factor in the expected days of attendance. When extracted, the record from LEA1 should have the number of expected attendance days reflecting 3 days a week. In this scenario, LEA1 has the primary enrollment and would report a STAS record. Regardless of the type of home and hospital instruction at LEA2, LEA1 should report the student with an absence code that does not factor in the expected days of attendance. LEA2 enrolls the student with a short-term enrollment status, and if the student is served in an alternative school, no STAS record is required. If LEA2 does not serve the student with an alternative school, they should enroll the student with a primary enrollment. This requires that a STAS record be reported. In this scenario, a student is primarily enrolled in LEA1 and has a home and hospital enrollment in the geographic area of LEA2. The student's home and hospital enrollment lasts more than 30 days. LEA1 reports the primary enrollment but uses an absence code that does not factor in the expected attendance days while the student receives home and hospital instruction from LEA2. This is new guidance because LEA1 should not disenroll the student in CalPads. LEA2 also reports the STAS and primarily enrolls the student for the period of home and hospital instruction. When the student returns to LEA1, LEA2 should exit the primary enrollment. Absences due to parental leave are marked as excused absences. Students are entitled to 8 weeks of parental leave before or after birth if there is a medical necessity. More than 8 weeks of parental leave is allowed if deemed medically necessary by the student physician. Students are allowed to return to school, continue course of study, and make up for missed work. Students may opt to attend alternative education options offered by the LEA, and the absences due to parental leave are marked again as excused absences. For schools that have emergencies or disasters and parents pull students from schools, the school does not include those days in the expected attendance days and does not report the absence during that time. If a school traditionally has 180 instructional days, but loses 30 days of instruction to a flood, earthquake, or some other emergency situation, the expected days is adjusted, and those lost days do not count as absences.